Hi, and welcome to Marita's History Corner's 14th video. Today I will talk about Norse mythology. Before the Norse, also known as the Vikings, converted to Christianity during the Middle Ages, they had their own vibrant native pagan religion that was as harshly beautiful as the Nordic landscape to which it was intimately connected. The centerpiece of that religion was what we today call Norse mythology, the set of religious stories that gave meaning to the Vikings' lives. These myths revolved around gods and goddesses, with fascinating and highly complex characters such as Odin, Thor, Freya, and Loki. The Norse religion that contained these myths never had a true name. Those who practiced it just called it tradition. However, people who continued to follow the old ways after the arrival of Christianity were often called heathens, which originally meant simply people who live on the heaths or elsewhere in the countryside, and that name has stuck. Religion are attempts by mankind to reach the numinous, and the Norse religion was of course no exception. It provided a means of doing this that was fitting for the Vikings' time and place, even though some aspects of it may strike the modern reader as bizarre. If we approach it with the open mind it deserves, we can recognize within it the common human quest to live life in the presence of the transcendent majesty and the joy of the sacred. And even though it's been 1,000 years since the last Viking laid down their sword, people today continue to be inspired by the vitality and wonder of the Norse myths and the gods who inhabit them. For the Vikings, the world as they found it was enchanted. That is, they didn't feel the need to seek salvation from the world, but instead delighted in and marveled at the way things are, including what we today would call both nature and culture. Their religion and myths didn't sugarcoat the sordidness, strife, and unfairness of earthly life, but instead acknowledged it and praised the attempt to master it through the accomplishment of great deeds for the benefit of oneself and one's people. A life full of such deeds was what the good life was for the Vikings. The Vikings were seafaring raiders, explorers, conquerors, settlers and traders from modern-day Norway, Denmark, Sweden and Iceland, who ventured throughout most of the world during the Viking Age, which happened roughly between 793 and 1066. They traveled as far east as Baghdad and as far west as North America, which they discovered some 500 years before Christopher Columbus. They spoke Old Norse language, wrote in runes, and practiced their ancestral religion. The Vikings were motivated to sail from their homelands by timeless, universal human desires: wealth, prestige, and more power. As in most human societies, those aims were intertwined for the Vikings. Those who had more wealth typically had more prestige and more power, and vice versa. The Vikings sought wealth in both its portable form, gold, silver, gemstones and the like, and in the form of land. We have Vikings to thank for our present understanding, not only of their own pre-Christian religion and mythology, but of that of the other Germanic people as well. Thanks to the Old Norse poems, treatises and sagas that were written during or relatively short after the Viking Age, we have a much fuller picture of what the Vikings' religion was like, despite the many unfortunate holes that nevertheless remain in that picture, than we do for the religions of any of the other pre-Christian Germanic people. But from the little we do know from the religions directly, they seem to have been various on common themes that were also shared by the Norse. So we can use the Norse source to help us reconstruct those hoary religions too. The Germanic people are one of the indigenous people of the Northern Europe, along with the Celts, Sami, Finns and others. Historically, they've occupied much of Scandinavia, Iceland, the British Isles and continental Europe north of the Alps. Their best known representatives are the Vikings, the Anglo-Saxons and the continental Germanic tribes. But they include many other groups as well. In the modern era, they, or we, are spread out across the world. While there were certainly regional and temporal variations in the pre-Christian religion of the Germanic people, there were nevertheless a common core worldwide, cosmology, and to a large extent, a common pantheon as well. If you are a person of Northern European descent, including English, Scottish, German and Northern French descent, it's a safe bet that you have some Germanic blood in you. That means, in turn, it's a safe bet that some of your ancestors practiced something very close. Of course, you very well may still find Norse mythology to the religion represented by Norse mythology to be fascinating and illuminating if you don't have any Germanic in your ancestry. Mythologies are certainly expressions of a particular person or people, but they're far from only that. There tends to be a spark of something more timeless and universal in them as well. Well, that was all I had for Norse mythology. In not too long, I will post a new video about Loki. So stay tuned. See ya!